Hi. Hi. I wanted to start by thanking everybody here because obviously without conferences like this, we don't get to learn things, right? We have to sit in some classroom somewhere that's really boring, and we don't get to drink vodka and shoot guns. Or we have to try and read their books. I mean, when I was a kid, they didn't really have security books, so we had to find these white shopping carts that had wheels on them, that had telephone company logos on the side. But the books were free from there. So it's really nice to have a conference that we get to go to and all get to share ideas. So thank you, please, to all of the confidence people. By the way, you are more than free to leave now or any time because you will learn nothing from my talk. I'm just being serious, so if you're mad, if you're like, I didn't learn anything, that I told you so. I want to thank United, because that's pretty much where I live these days. I want to thank you guys for being so awake and attentive, because it's really nice. PowerPoint, because it's awesome. Like I said, you're not going to learn anything. I'm just here to kind of like wake you up a little bit. I have a disclaimer for all of my talks that I give to everybody. You guys can read. I curse. I'm prejudiced. I'm racist. I'm a terrible person. I talk about violence and vomiting and abuse and all sorts of other stuff. I usually, actually almost always, tell the truth, which most people hate. I use facts, which are things that most vendors don't do. So I'm sure they'll be pissed at me for that. I drank a lot of vodka last night, so I'm going to do my best not to puke while I'm on stage. It just makes me happy to have slides like that, Fuck everybody else. I'm really excited to be here. I'm so excited that I'm going to start swearing, probably a lot, but if you want to track my swearing on the periodic table of swearing, by all means, I'll probably teach you some new ones. Anyway, that's me in all sorts of different formats. The laser thing worked? That's one of my favorites. Because I gave a talk about using neurolinguistic programming to pick up members of whoever you want to bang, whether it's girls or guys, or girls picking up girls or guys, and decided it would be really funny to do it if I did it as like a 600-pound man. So I had one of the guys that helps us beat facial systems go and re-architect my whole jawline and change my entire body and give this talk, and it was really funny. I'm an American, so I have absolutely no idea where the fuck anything else is in the world. I'll just let you sit with that. It'll last a while. There's all sorts of real fun shit in that one. This is like Satan. All right. I've got a bunch of certs. You can have a bunch of certs if you have Photoshop. It's really easy. It's just about as easy as the stupid fucking test. But it probably takes a little more time to get the Photoshop right. I have a bunch of other certs. I really, really love my job to the point where I talk about it in public, where most people are like, yeah, this is what I do, I'm sorry. But I really love mine so much that I make graphs about how much I love my job, because it's PowerPoint, you have to make graphs for shit, right? That's the whole point of the thing. What am I going to say next? I don't know, make a graph. Do you like your job? Yes. Oh, cool, they're going to make these charts. So I'm part of a company called Lares. We do code review. We do incident response. Incident response is a good gig. Look at Mandy and they're rich. They don't do shit. Wah wah. I do risk assessments. So for various types of compliance mechanisms, as you can see. We do some physical security stuff. We do pen testing quite a bit. This one's funny. I just want to print that out and give it to everybody at conferences. Like, the classic, it's just some dude pushing a button. Yeah, good old pen testers. We do red teaming. We do a whole bunch of other really shady stuff, including pimping people's rides. But, writing custom malware and whatever else that people ask us to do, or just breaking into shit and wrecking it. I'm happy to do it. Yep, so that's the I love me part. Time for fun. So this is our industry, the information security restroom. We live and breathe and operate in a market that is the worst investment you could ever invest in. Sad, isn't it? So every year we lose more money, and then every year our budget goes up. That's like the shittiest investment ever. Those are like the stockbrokers that are just too coked out to go to work, and they're like, whatever, buy it, I don't care. Like, people spend more and lose more every year, so that's fail, right? It's just it's an industry of suck. So why is it an industry of suck? And that's the only thing I can try and think of in these things. And the first thing that I came up with is the vendors, because they make really old technology that's stupid. Like, web application our brand new next generation web application firewall that came out in 1991. Bring everything to the cloud. Okay, that's from the 60s. We're not making any progress, guys. We just put a whole bunch of really cool new marketing stuff on something that's really fucked up and old. It's not a Yugo, it's a Wyugo. Ta-da! It's got brand new paint. This thing's awesome. No, it sucks, still. And then they wonder why, well, how come they're attacking our new things? It must be an advanced attack. Really? It's just a human. It's the same damn thing we have dealt with since the dawn of man. Nothing new. Yeah? Sweet. All right. Even more, because you need statistics, right? Because every talk has to have graphs and statistics. So all of these pretty much just say, we suck, we lose more money. Oh, we have more malware because we installed AV on everything. Because you obviously need it, because we're getting 69% more malware infecting our machines every year with our awesome AV that we're required to put on it, right? Imagine if that was the rate for condoms. I mean, let's just really think about that. I've been wearing a condom every time this year, and I have 69% more kids. You wouldn't fuck with that. That would be like a bad luck. You would be better off just hanging a voodoo doll over the bed, and it would probably be 62% more likely. Oh yeah, that's what AV is. Huh. Okay. Did you know that 80% of the intrusions that were tracked last year were from phishing? That's pretty hardcore. What does that tell you? Users are stupid? Oh, they're not stupid. We're shitty educators. You don't walk up to a child and go, ha ha ha, idiot, you can't talk. No one does that. If you do that, you're the dick. Fucking kid, boop. Get out of here, punk. That shit doesn't happen. But we got to think about that stuff, right? What it tells me is what I've known forever. The most fun part of using a computer is clicking on shit. Everything else is kind of dumb and crappy. You're like E, X, P, M, enter, fucking click, click. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, funny cat videos, fucking clicking little things that are on my screen. It's fun. So we know that. We gotta start building our protection mechanisms around what's the most fun shit and make sure they can do it safely. I thought that this was really hilarious, and it comes up terrible on the screen, so I'll read it. It says 79% of respondents in this Poneman study, which, whenever he's not high on crack, he writes things. 79% of respondents selected end users as the #1 group responsible for the security of cloud service providers. What the fuck? What? That's 79% said some crazy shit like that? Like, we screwed up educating everyone. Like, we screwed up as much as you can screw up. Because we expect users to clean up after themselves. I mean, that's really what we expect, right? Because we're so busy looking at all these charts, we're forgetting the fact that only 28% of the things that are going on are coming from hacking. And a big, giant 9%. Know those web app people? And what is it? OWASP? I'm fucking with you. I appreciate OWASP. But realistically, they're like, web apps are the hot shit. Actually, you're totally wrong. 9% is hot nothing. If the girl you were dating was 9% hot, you'd be pretty pissed. Okay. So that's a better graph to look at that. So what do we do about this stuff? My theory in all of this is that all of us want to be really skinny and really pretty, but never do any work, right? So we have to understand that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. We have a ton of talented people in this industry who will do one cool thing a year and then just fucking hang out instead of working all year long. And I know it sucks, you have to work, but it is kind of fun that we get to do this shit for a living. So I'd like to keep it. So postulates and proofs is the big thing that my company tries to run on, right? A lot of people think that you can defend against something. Can you or can't you? Actually testing it, It's a firewall. It blocks ports. Really? Are you sure? Well, yeah, I clicked the button that says block shit. Okay. I clicked the button that said don't get into a car crash when I'm drunk. Pretty sure it works. So when we look at what security is usually made out of, it's these kind of three things, right? You have the social side, the interaction, the people, all those things. You have the electronic side, you have the physical side, right? So we test some physical stuff, and usually when we test physical stuff, especially in the auditor world, we have no concept of use. We test things based on some metric where we go off this check sheet and we're like, oh, do you have cameras? Yes, check. Do your cameras work? Let me see your cameras. So the auditor goes over and they look at a screen and it's a shitload of pictures and they're like, cameras work. Does that mean all the cameras work? Does that mean the cameras work when you're supposed to see certain things? No, it just means that there's a picture on the screen. You can easily beat all of your physical security audits by just having a fake TV with someone else's CCTV playing on it. They'll have no idea that you don't have a baller camera system. And you'll be like, oh, it's all hidden. And they're like, wow, you guys have a really good camera system. So how do you know? It pan, tilts, and zooms. Watch. Look, the TV moves. All right. And then, locks are only for honest people. That's all that they're for. So do we know that your locks work? Do we know that the locks are the appropriate strength to protect the things that the lock is supposed to be guarding? Or is it just the same lock that's everywhere? Well, if it's the same lock that's everywhere, then that means nothing's important or everything's important. And then they can't define that, and oh, they have locks. Click. So that's a problem, yeah? We can't really test those things. We have the social side that we look at, and from the social side, we're like, well, look, users love to click shit. They absolutely love it, so we know that they're going to click it. So there's no reason for us to test whether they're going to click it or not, because of course they're going to click it. Everybody wants $1 million from Nigeria, because obviously Nigeria just has a shitload of money that they want to give away. Still haven't figured that one out. They're like, wait a second, you mean the kids in the video want to give me money? I thought we were giving them rice. It's tough. So we have these misconceptions of how information leaks, how people leak out information on the phone, how they do those things, yet all we do is send somebody some fish me thing that has a poorly spelled email, and then when Susan clicks on it, we're like, Susan, you just got our whole company owned. And she's like, I just clicked on something. And they're like, yep, but it could have owned the whole company. Really? Prove it. Prove it. If you can't prove it, you're full of shit. Because we do all this stuff really poorly. Right? Like, that's how we fish right now. We're like, yeah, hole in the road, boop. Electronic stuff, we try real hard. We go through and there's a bunch of people who sit around and hit the first scan button and then watch all the red things pop up, and then hit the second exploit button and watch all the little computery text things pop up, and then they take a picture of it and they're like, bam, owned all your stuff. Yet that has nothing to do with the business. That has nothing to do with the car manufacturer. You didn't break a car. You didn't steal all of their money. Like, don't tell people that you could have stole all of their money unless you actually can steal their money. Like, theoretically, well, I'm in this AS400, so I could steal all the money out of the bank accounts. No shit, do it. They're like, well, I don't really know AS400 that well. Then you can't do shit. Sorry, can't do anything. Like, maybe someone else could, but you can't. So that risk is totally void. Play this with your auditors, by the way. If your auditor gives you one of those little color sheets, or if you're the auditor, get your game up. But if they give you something that they say it's a risk, and they say it potentially could do this, tell them, nope. Just simply say no. And when they say yes, say nope, again. And you'll go back and forth until they get really frustrated. And then you'll say, okay, explain to me exactly how this would cause my business monetary loss or brand defamation. And they'll pull something out of their ass because they're trying to be cool, and then say, okay, now do it. And they'll sit there with their thumb squarely placed up their ass, trying to figure out how the fuck SSL is going to be of any use in attacking them whatsoever. And then when they find out that they have to be on the same local subnet as that particular box, and you're like, well, you're not on that subnet, now do it. They're like, well, you have to put me on that subnet. No. Screw you. Make it happen, hacker kid. And then they can't? Oh, that sucks. Go home. Not a risk. Low. So we have to remember those things when we're testing. We have to prove impact. Anything we can't prove as impact, it's irrelevant for us to tell a business. And if you don't know how to prove the impact, either come to one of these talks or conferences to get the skills to do so, or get people on your team to work together to actually make these things happen. Don't just try and game the system, right? Because when we game the system, we're like, yay, more genies. I have one wish. I wish to have more genies so that I can have more wishes. And the genie's like, fuck. Right? I want all of you guys to go out like my information security prophet, Mike Tyson. He is my InfoSec hero. Yeah, hero. He said the most profound thing that any of us in InfoSec could ever possibly understand, which is everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. But I have this DR. Fuck, where's my book? No, this really sucks. I hate everything. Right? Beat the shit out of people. Because it makes them better. We're here to be sparring partners, not somebody to sit there and take a look at them. I mean, doctors don't just sit there and look at you and check things off a list. They inspect what's going on. They use their expertise and knowledge to communicate a level of impact for you that gives you the level of knowledge you need to make an informed decision. And if somebody's not making a decision that's informed, if the user's stupid, then it's probably our fault for not teaching them what's going on. Because most people I don't think are that stupid. I mean, granted, there's a lot of stupid people. But most of them, if you give them the right context, they'll understand. You know, if you bring their hand over to the stove and force them to get burned, they're not going to hang out with you anymore. But they're also going to not touch the stove. One of the ways that we try and suggest to do that is through convergence. Because because we've been doing conferences and stuff for a long time, we tend to be kind of good at doing a single thing, a single social thing, a single electronic thing, a single physical thing. But like anything else, when you put two substances together, whether it's in chemistry, whether it's physically, the bond between those two substances tends to be the weakest part, right? It's never the substance itself. It's always the way that those substances marry together. So when attackers attack environment, converged threats are exactly where they go first, right? Where do I see an overlap of some of these things? You know, how can I get somebody to really understand the difference between the physical side? I love that note so much. You know, the physical side, the electronic side, the social side. Where do those convergence pieces come in? So when you're attacking things electronically, right, think about how you can manipulate the electronic systems to gain physical access. Because your vulnerability that you found is going to be very, very present to those people when you go, oh, you know, there's Tomcat running on this with default credentials, and they're like, don't care. And then you show them a shell, and they're like, oh, look, DOS, don't care. But when you walk up to them, and they're like, yo, check this out. Click a button, door opens. They're like, what the fuck? They have no idea what's going on, and you now have their attention directly, right? So try and go find these badge systems and attack them, because it's really, really easy. I mean, it's so easy that these things, like admin blank on OSVDB, are considered ODE because no one has said, hey, there's default credentials here. Oh, these ports that are registered just to DSX, it's only to them. You have a huge environment. Anything that's running that shit, that's a badge server. Go attack it. Oh yeah, if you connect to port 555 with a web browser on these things, it's a SQL interface that you can type SQL commands into. Anybody do web stuff? You can just type command. You don't even have to do injection. You just type shit into it, and it prints it out or does whatever you want. No auth, nothing. It's just a box. It's really sexy. Oh yeah, and you know, the good old SA blank, that's always hot. These guys are really good too. So between OnGuard and WinDSX, they're the two largest vendors in the world that you'll see for these things. OnGuard's so cool that there's actually a web app and a little iPhone and Android app. And the Android app authenticates to, the Android app sends commands to these URLs without any authentication at all to open doors. So you walk around with your little iPad. How cool do you look? Like, how fucking awesome hacker is that shit? You walk around with your iPad, and they don't know that it's just like the stupid, like you're just saying open. They don't need to know that, right? It just looks really hot when you walk up and you're like, oh, what door is this? B76? Boop. And it opens, and they're looking, and they're like, what is that magic pad? Like, what magic are you doing? You're like, oh, I just typed in the word open and hit enter. And they're like, what? Like, that's real? We spent $1.5 million on this door shit, and all you literally have to do is type OPEN and hit enter? Yeah. Like, fuck. Makes a lot of sense to them. So remember rape. Replace add, promote, and exploit. And every time you're converging physical and electronic, right? Go into systems, replace yourself, add new users, add new members. These are all controls where the electronic piece starts to integrate into physical pieces. The electronic teams should be seeing this. You should have snort rules and IDS rules for when people are making alterations to the badge system. When people are talking database to the badge system, it should only be the fucking badge servers. If there's any computer anywhere on the entire network that's talking to that shit, it's an attacker. Yay, IDS, 100%, no false positives. Take that shit, vendors. First time you'll do something right. All right. If there's people in there that have similar names, there's similar names everywhere. Like, I was in one of these places where there was a user, it was this big black guy, named Eric Smith, and one of my guys is named Eric Smith. And so Eric walked in, all we had to do in the badge system, we didn't even have a badge. All we had to do was replace his picture. And so when my, 5'10", 175-pound Eric Smith white guy walked in and got a brand new badge because he left his at home, and 6'8", 350-pound black guy Eric Smith walked in later and they threw him out, and the security guards had detained him, it was a real confusing day for them. We had a lot of extra time to do what we needed in the facility at that moment. Also, you should be buffing badge systems. Remember that when you're doing these things, privilege escalation, just like it is in the electronic side, works in the physical side. So test privilege escalation on physical systems. Right? These are things that most people are not putting in the scope of their, well, I did a pen test, I ran this thing, I ran this exploit, I got a shell, I jerked off for a little bit, I showed somebody that I was fucking awesome, and then I wrote a report saying, I kick ass, look at this shell. And that's pretty much all pen test reports. So try and do some of these things in the converged areas, right? Try and exploit some of these systems and show them where the convergence pieces come together. So physical and social. Get where I'm going with some of these? Yeah? Cool. All right, physical and social is really fun, because that's when you get to play dress up. Because everybody likes to play dress up. I mean, you don't tell everybody that. You're like, I love wearing dresses. You're like, shh. I only do that when I'm pen testing. But I look so pretty. Click. A real fun way to do those things, this was a picture from, it was like 4:30 in the morning after we had got done with this job. And the little Dominion thing that's right here was from a power company. And the power company was, you can look up on land maps, and this works in just about every country, depending on where you are, how you do it, but there's resources to do that. We actually have a giant list of resources for this stuff on anybody use the pen test standard before? So we made a standard a while ago called the pen test standard, pentest-standard.org. Hi, Luke. How are you? Nice to see you, honey. So there's a guide that's associated with it that's like a 700-page pen testing book that we wrote for free because we got sick of people doing shitty pen tests, and we're like, hey, if we write a book, maybe it'll help. It didn't. But it's a good resource for people who want to find things. I mean, I find shit in it all the time. And some of those are some of these like land management, power management things. So if you find what company is doing the power management for a data center, it's pretty easy to find their logo, which means it's pretty easy to get on the internet and make yourself a shirt. And it's really easy to just walk up to the place and be like, power's fucked up. And the person at the front door is like, no, it isn't. Be like, why do you think I'm here? Power company. And they're like, oh shit, my bad. There's no reason for them to stop you. Like, that's cool if you don't want the power to be on the executive floor, but they're kind of pissed. So you can call them and have them be more pissed that I'm not fixing it, or you can let me go fix it. And usually it's, go ahead and go fix it. Be aware that sometimes you have to fix things that you know nothing about. And I mean nothing. Like, in this particular one, Eric walks in, he's sitting there and he's going back and forth. The guard's being a real hard-on about it, which is, good for him, he's doing his job. And this guy comes out of the data center and he's like, oh man, are you the guy from Eaton Power Systems? And it says Dominion, like clearly. He's like, yeah, I'm from Eaton. He's like, come on. He just grabs him and like just like pushes the security dude out of the way and just grabs him and walks him to the data center. And he goes to the back and he's like, man, I've been calling you guys all day. And he's like, score, lucky break. Like, how perfect is that shit? Like, I would love to say my OPSEC and my OSINT is that good, but it's not. But you get lucky. And so he walks in, the guy's freaking out. This Liebert is going fucking bananas, right? It's just loud, crazy alarms. So he's like, well, I'm not a Liebert guy. I only work on the Eaton stuff. So let me call one of my buddies who's a Liebert guy. So he gives me a call, and I'm like sitting in the parking lot, like eating Cheetos, like hanging out. I'm like, man, did he get burned yet? Like, am I gonna have to go do weird shit and get him out? And run in naked and be like, ah, and just wait for them to arrest me and have him jump in the data center. That works, by the way. It is a method, tried and true. But so he calls me. I go out of the parking lot, pull back around. They're outside smoking. The guy's like, this thing has been ringing alarms all day long. So I show up, the savior, the Liebert guy. I walk into the place. He's like, man, you got to help me out. And this guy's like frazzled. He's like, he's hurting. And you could see it in his face. And I'm like, poor dude, what's going on? And he's like, this alarm won't go off. And he's like, how do you shut this alarm off? And me, being the Liebert guy, I walk over to the wall where the loud box is chirping, and there's a button. Push the button in. Hold it for a second. Beeping stops. Pull my finger off. No more beeping. Yeah. Ding! I am now the baddest motherfucker in that environment. Do whatever I want. And he's like, yeah! How did you do that? And I'm like, push a button. Hold it in. Release your finger. No more alarm. He's like, yes. Like, his whole life was different. So then we got to the real problem, which the Liebert was actually fucked up. And it said high head pressure, which I have no idea what that means. I don't understand power shit. So I have like a basic understanding of electronics from like being in the Navy and like halfway paying attention when I wasn't stoned in classes. And so I'm like staring at it. I'm like, high head pressure. I'm like, shit, hold on, man, I gotta hit the head. He's like, all right. I go to the bathroom. I'm like on my phone. I'm like, fucking Liebert, push to the model, high head pressure. I'm like looking through forms and shit. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I can like reset. I'm like looking at all this stuff as I'm sitting there. So there's like a diagram of what to do, but I can't remember that shit. I'm dumb. I'm an American. Right? Like, I'm not gonna remember that. So now it's on my phone. And so we go back into the data, and now I'm like walking in and out of the data center. The fucking like front guard guys like high-fiving me and shit on the way in. You know, there's a huge key box behind him that I keep like going to mess with every time I don't see him. And then every time he comes back, I'm like, "There's a key in here?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Hook it up." He's like, "Oh, I'll let you in." I'm like, "Oh, okay, fine." But I'm like still like messing with it the whole time. So get back into the data center. I pop the floor tiles up, and there's oil, physical oil, everywhere. I'm like, wow, I'm gonna die. like, I'm talking shit so that I can do funny testing stuff, and I'm gonna be dead in a data center. This sucks. So I like stick my head down there, and I'm like, let me have my phone so I can see some light. So I pull it up, and I'm pulling up this diagram, and I'm looking at this thing. It's like spraying oil, and there's shit breaking, and like I can see electricity. And it's like not good. But the diagram totally helped. It worked. Shut the valve pressure off. I was able to like kind of stabilize the thing. And I saved their day. I had no clue what I was doing. I probably should have been dead from that one. But the most fun part, in order to get their trust, because we had to get into the camera system, which was inside of their little ops center. So we went to the ops center, and I'm like, look, man, I feel really bad that we didn't get to you guys. Like, let me call somebody to make sure that we escalate how fast we get the replacement part. So I got on the phone, and I did what I'm good at. I screamed at these people. I have no idea who these people were, but I was pretending to be a tech, and I was letting them have it. I was like, you motherfucker, I can't believe you abandoned our client. And the dude's like sitting in the chair, and he's like, get that shit. And I'm like, these people are cut. So I slammed the phone down. I'm like super pissed. He's like, my dog. He's like, yeah. I'm like, those people are on their way out. So about an hour, as Eric is sitting there, as I'm yelling on the phone and people are like cheering me on and shit, and he's just, he was just taking USBs and just going, plug? Well, plug? Plug? He's like, hey man, you have another USB? He's like, yeah. He like gets on, plugs it in, makes another USB so he can start doing shit faster. It was pretty cool. And I got out of the place totally scot-free because as soon as the real repair people showed up, I was like, fuck you guys. And I just left. And the guy looked at me and he's like, I was like, you good? You got this? He's like, no, I got it now. He's like, I know where the button is. This shit's done with. Those people had for like a month later, they had no idea. Well, we even signed in and out of the data center, which I thought was kind of cute. But they had no idea that any of that stuff was going on. And meanwhile, Gates was sitting down in the basement getting maps for all the other buildings. So then we could actually physically get into those places. And when you're trying to physically get into places, you have to remember, not always are you going to just attack the badge system. Right? That's not, I can't say that's not always going to work, because it's going to fucking always work. It always works. Physical security guys need to hang out with us, and we need to hang out with them. Like, go get them drunk, teach them how to pick locks, let them teach you cool physical security stuff, because we don't do enough of that. Because shit like that exists everywhere. And it's protected by the worst lock in the entire office. The thing that holds all the stuff that gets you into everything is protected by the shittiest version of what it's supposed to do. Sounds just like InfoSec. These people are our brothers. Like, that's our family. That's how they roll. Like, we roll exactly like this.
Even worse, that's a master key system.
Right. When all else fails in physical security, make it hot. Like, make it suck to be there. If people are in your way, make it really crappy for them to be in your way. You don't have to always manipulate people. Sometimes if it's just too warm in the place, people will leave. So if you find industrial control systems where you can turn up the heat, please go look for those. You know, like, if you're assessing any type of medical provider, any type of laboratory, where temperature control inside of what they're doing is extremely important, don't go hack their banking system and show them that you can get credit cards. No one fucking cares about that shit. Show them that you can turn the heat on in the operating room. Everybody will freak out, and they will fix that shit today. They will fix it right now. The banking credit card thing, they're like, whatever. Name me one company that went out of business because they lost a shitload of credit cards. Nobody. Oh wait, their stock actually goes up afterwards. Yeah, for all of you hackers and pen testers who are used to bitching about that stuff, please learn how to use the stock market. Please learn that. Learn the day of the breach, you short the stock so that you can make money on the stock falling. And once it hits its stopgap on the bottom and it starts to go up a little bit, you'll have one bump, it'll go back down, and then it will beat its previous price every single time a compromise happens. So go get rich, because we're not going to get rich telling people how to fix shit. Impersonating people is really, really good. Now, in the States, you can't impersonate a police officer, right? But if you completely make up an agency that doesn't exist, you're not impersonating a police officer. It's just totally cyber extra. I just fucking put mad crazy cyber investigation unit, you know, of the military forces of the world. You know, like, and I was like, I'll make a logo. We'll just make a world and like an eagle, and that seems like some heavy cyber world shit. And we'll put a shield on it because we're protecting people with our investigations of whatever the fuck it is that we're doing. They buy that shit all the time. They buy, eat it up. You don't even have to give them excuses. You're like, well, my bad, good. They didn't want to talk to you because you have cyber world shit going on. All right. Yeah, I'll make you one. No problem. I'll give you the, what is it? I have it in vector format, so you can just send it to print shops. Yeah, yeah. I think I even have one of those that I made for Jeff Moss that was like an actual badge. That's really hot. When you show that shit, that like gets you laid at bars. You're like, I'm the cyber world investigator. They're like, holy shit. I didn't even know you. You know, you're like, we're on the DL. All right, electronic and social, just to go through some of the rest of these. When you're blending in electronic and social threats, remember that you can go find all of these things in people's email. Like, you may be able to compromise a system, but everybody uses email, and everybody uses email to communicate really sensitive shit because they're too afraid to use the phone, because we all forgot how that shit works. So like when email goes down, people are like, oh shit, time to go home. They're like, what do you mean time to go home? They're like, email's down, I can't do work. And they're like, you have a phone. And they're like, nope, time to go home. So read everybody's email. Like, go find the stuff. Go find things that are important in environments. If you're trying to find where some of these things are that you need to attack that are going to really scare people, when you read their emails and you get an understanding of the company and you get an understanding of what they do through your OSINT profiling and how you work with that company, you'll start to figure out what's important. If you need to go find boxes and stuff quickly, like, please don't bitch and tell me about how Linux is awesome or Windows is awesome or whatever. Learn how to use all of it. And all these hacker search functions are there, right? Like, I want to know what the domain controllers are. Really, really easy to find that shit. Windows is super fun. You can even type like finance and hit enter and you'll find shit on the network. That's so cool. That makes like our job really, really, really easy when all you have to do is find those little things. When you're searching for boxes, don't search for the box names, search through the descriptions. Because everybody wants to have a neat and tidy environment where they're like, oh, this is Mary's PC that prints out the checks. So when I search for check, boop, that comes out. I can print myself a couple checks. It looks really cool in my pictures in the report where I'm like, look at all the cash. And you're not actually stealing it from them and messing up their books, but they know that if you cache that, they're fucked. So you give it back to them as a nice little present because of how awesome you are. And you know, you hold one back in case they don't pay their bill. But whatever. You know, finding different things in companies, you know, please get good at using LDAP. There's no reason any attacker should ever be in an environment for more than about 20 minutes, ever. If you're in an environment longer than that, you didn't do your job, you didn't do your homework. Like, I can't think of times that we need to be in environments more than that. Go use DS query, use LDAP queries, say, hey, LDAP, please tell me the oldest, shittiest machine that you have. And it's like, here's Windows NT4 with no login. You're like, thanks. And I'm done. Get the fuck out. Right? Go to bar, drink beer. It's a real good day. You need to find users. Please go find the proper users. You know, you can look on their LinkedIn to see that they're head of physical security or head of banking or finance or whatever else. Then use some of the queries that are built there. Use some of the stuff like Mubix's NetView. I mean, if you want to elevate privileges in an environment and you have a local admin but you don't have domain admin, go use NetView, find every box that domain admin guys are on and root every single one of those machines. You know, go dump everything on it, use incognito, pull tokens out of it. You know, use Mimikatz, get their plain text passwords, be done, go away, make sure nobody sees you. This is one of my favorites, are like net share monitors. Anybody do this on like big folder shares when they're looking for stuff? Favorite way to do it. Get onto one of the big storage controllers, especially in a Windows environment, go to manage shared folders and sessions, and it shows you every single person that's connected to that drive. That's awesome. Because now, if there's somebody that has documentation that you need, you can just go right to their box by clicking on it. That's really helpful. NetShare Monitor is cool because it does that, and you can do it across many machines. All right, So a little bit of tech, a little bit of fun stories. My overall message is that it's not all bleak and dim. I just feel like if we hold all of ourselves to higher standards, we can fix it. Not holding other people to higher standards. If we hold ourselves to higher standards, if we think that everything that we do, if the person's not understanding us, the group isn't understanding us, the company isn't understanding us, the country isn't understanding us. It's our jobs to hold ourselves to a higher standard, to learn what we need to learn and make it make sense. Because if it doesn't make sense to them, we don't matter at all. We have no job, no industry left. It's just a whole bunch of people in black t-shirts sitting in a room being pissed about the rest of the world when we could be making change. So my goal in all of this, test all the things, have way more fun than you're having right now, and communicate as much as you possibly can. Go tell stories to people because maybe they'll learn something from it. That's it. That's so bright.